let's make a start. So, evening everyone, thank you ever so much for joining us. We're here in 2021, which is insane really when you think about it. We're still in the same position that we have been for the last 10 months, but really, really grateful that you're still here with us. So thank you ever so much for joining us this evening. A quick overview of Tech Wednesday. So if you are with us for the very first time, thank you ever so much for joining. Tech Wednesday is our monthly meetup. We're here the third Wednesday of every month. We are originally a Midlands technology and entrepreneur community meetup, but obviously at the minute we're welcoming everybody from all over, which is really, really great. And we are so lucky and thankful that people are joining us from a couple of our other Bruntwood regions. So thank you ever so much. Throughout the evening, if you would like to carry on the conversation online, please do and use the hashtag TechWeds. You can use our handles there, which is @TechWednesday and @BW_SciTech. Please do, we encourage you to carry on that conversation, and include any tips that you want for coming up next month or the month after. Please do pop it all on there. So this evening I'm joined by Dan and Paul. Thank you guys for joining. So very, very shortly I'll hand over to the guys and they'll talk you through the most of the session this evening. So Dan Bridgewater, he's the founder and CEO of Buckt, which is the UK's only ticket and activity subscription service. Dan's going to talk us through this evening some practical tips about setting up a successful business and a couple of things that he wished that he'd have known beforehand. So hopefully those are coming useful to anybody on the call. Then we'll hear from Paul. So Paul is a senior software professional with a great history in developing embedded systems for onboard spacecraft systems. Tongue twister. He's here this evening to talk to us about a brand new exciting project, which is the Open Source Satellite. Then after the guys have talked, spoken to us about their specific subjects, I've got 3 things just to highlight this month, which are coming up in the next couple of weeks, which I think might be of interest to you. So we'll hear from Dan first. We'll have a question and answer session with him. So please do pop in any questions you have in the chat or in the Q&A facility. Please do that as we go along, and then we'll pop over to Paul and do exactly the same. So that's just a quick introduction from me. I'm going to invite Dan to share his screen first and talk to us all about Buckt.
Hi guys, can you hear me? I'll take that as a yes. So yeah, thank you for joining us this evening. Yeah, as I was saying to the guys earlier, I'll have to apologise in advance for pushing my hair out my face. Honestly, this is like a lockdown schmop. So yeah, if you can see me flicking my hair back, just apologise in advance. So yes, just kind of following up on what Stephanie was saying, I just wanted to introduce myself, give you guys a little bit of context. As mentioned, I'm the founder and CEO of Buckt. I'm going to talk about Buckt a little bit more in a second, but just in terms of kind of some other things that I've been involved in, I actually am the founder and chairman of a company called Fourth Wall. So Fourth Wall is a creative training agency. We run training projects with young people, primarily using kind of theatre and the arts as kind of our way of delivering that training. Historically, I've been involved in marketing. I set up a marketing company. I've done some public speaking, some training. And also alongside that, I've got quite a lot of governance experience, which gives me quite a different perspective on business. So, for example, I'm one of the young board members for the Greater Birmingham and Solihull LEP. I've been a trustee of Uprising. I've been a chair of governors. I've been on the board of a chain of academies. So I have quite a wide bit of experience kind of in the business world. And sorry, yeah, there it is. So yeah, so in terms of, sorry, I've just got something on my screen. Give me 1 second. Okay, 1 sec. Cool. So yeah, so the aim for today is to provide practical tips. I think there's enough airy-fairy kind of advice that's too woolly in the business world. So what I was trying to do is I've tried to make them a very, very specific, focus on really key ideas. Hopefully this will all be of use to you guys. So yes, as mentioned, founder and CEO of Buckt. Buckt is the UK's only tickets and activities subscription service or subscription box company. We've got 2 core products. So our core flagship product is Buckt Go. And through Buckt Go, you get a subscription box every month with 5 mystery tickets to top attractions and activities in your region. So rock climbing, ice skating, axe throwing, rage rooms, you name it. Yeah, we've probably included it in a box. During the lockdown, obviously we couldn't go out. So we pivoted and launched a product called Buckt Home. And through Buckt Home, our subscribers get 5 mystery things that they can do at home. So crafting kits, baking kits, online masterclasses, all sorts of stuff. And hopefully through the talk, you'll kind of get a glimpse of how we got to this point and the things that we did in the early days to set up the business. So just go straight into the tips. So the 7 tips in total, 4 that I followed, and these were the things that I really found useful at the beginning, and then 3 which I look back and think, actually, I wish I'd done this. Now, the first one is fall in love with the problem, not the solution. Now, all businesses have a problem that they aim to solve. So whether it's solving world hunger or whether for us, it's literally helping people that are struggling to find fun things to do at the weekend. Now, these are key to a business, but what I've noticed, through the training that I've done, through the mentoring, is that a lot of people get it the wrong way. They focus on the solution and they fall in love with the solution. And we are going to expand on this a little bit more in kind of tip 2. Now, what happens is they think of a business idea, they fall in love with that business idea, they think it's the best business idea in the world. And like I said, they fell in love with the solution. And what I'm saying to you is fall in love with the problem. The problem is the thing that should underpin every business. And like I said, we are going to expand on this in a second. But yeah, it's a simple change in mindset. And one of the things that, I've done mentoring, I've worked with a lot of young entrepreneurs, and it's something that is really kind of key for them. It's actually making them think, you know what, I haven't got this fantastic idea. What actually is the problem that I'm trying to solve? Because without it, an idea means nothing if it's not actually solving a problem that people want solved. So, like I said, instead of thinking of a business idea, what is the problem? What problem do you want to solve? Fall in love with that problem. That should be written in bold and capitals on your notepad. It should be plastered on your walls. This is the foundation of your business. And like I said, just building on top of that. The second thing that I did, and one of the things that I kind of followed, quite closely at the beginning, was this idea about validation and research. Now, I know someone, and like I've said, I've got a subscription box business, somebody else that had a subscription box business. I remember having a chat to this person, and they told me that they had about 1/5 of the subscriber numbers that we had, and it was about 2 years ago. It later transpired that this person had invested £100,000 in that business. Now, my first question is, I don't know where people get £100,000 from. Like, I do not have £100,000 spare, so I don't know where they're getting this money from to invest. But kind of what it made me think was actually that our business had proved itself and was growing and had the numbers with very little, well, no financial investment, just the time that I put into it. And there were businesses that had put £100,000 into it that still weren't able to get the numbers that we and other businesses could achieve. Now, this idea about validation and research, it's based on it's based on a book called The Lean Startup by a guy called Eric Rice. Now, the basic principle is that before committing to an idea and therefore investing £100,000 or whatever it may be, you break it down into stages and you test, you research, you validate. And as we said earlier, there's kind of the problem and the solution. And what we need to do is we need to focus on that problem. So what is the problem that you've identified? For us, it was that couples were wasting time, money and energy trying to find things to do at the weekends, like a really, really simple idea. And what we did was we went out and tested it. So we did survey monkeys, we did focus groups. I spoke to mentors, I spoke to kind of my contacts. I had this hypothesis and I said, you know what, is this relevant to you? Does this resonate? And trying to do it in as impartial way as possible. Thankfully, people came back and said, yep, this is something that resonates with us. If the people had said that it didn't resonate, then I would have gone back to the start. And this is what this kind of model is saying. If people are saying, well, actually, no, that isn't a problem for me, no one's going to want anything that solves that problem because that problem doesn't exist. So we take it back to the start again. Thankfully, like I said, for us, people like, that it was a problem for them, it resonated. So we moved on to the next stage, which is the solution. So what you need to do is you need to find a solution, and it's a business idea. You ideally want something that people are going to pay for. And once again, you test that idea, test that principle, do your survey monkeys, your focus groups, etc. Now, for us, we actually did all of that, but we did a crowdfunder where people were allowed to pre-order the product in advance. And in the most simplest way, if people didn't pre-order it, people weren't sharing it, people weren't engaging with it, there might be the problem there, but that solution isn't what people want and people are going to buy. And once again, if you get to that stage and people don't want to buy it, they don't respond to it, you take a step back, you go back to the to the solution, you think of a new solution, or you go all the way back to the start and reevaluate your problem. Now, this is something called the customer validation cycle. Now, this image kind of breaks it down and goes into more detail, but I won't talk about this, but what I'm saying is if you search customer validation cycle, you'll be able to get this and find this information online. And honestly, it was so crucial and so useful to me. The aim is really to prevent you from kind of wasting your time. You take a step forward, you test. If people don't like it, you take a step back and you haven't wasted anything. Whereas what a lot of people do is they jump to this kind of execution stage, company building, before they've done these first stages and end up wasting money, time, energy. So yeah, identify your problem, test, identify your solution, test. The next tip that I have, and these aren't as much detail as the first two, so don't worry. This idea about having a monopoly of a niche. Now, a mentor said this to me, and it stuck. What it basically means is that be the best that you can in a very specific field, own that thing, own that area, and from that, success will be easier. So what you see is a lot of people that try and do too much in too broad an area. What this kind of theory, philosophy is saying is actually find that niche and be a badass at it, be the best. So for me, I left university. Like I said, I set up a marketing agency. In all fairness, I got quite a few contracts. I was earning a little bit of money, but the issue was that I didn't have the experience or the credentials behind me to ever take it to the next level and allow me to kind of achieve my goal. The marketing is just such a competitive area, and I had no unique USP. There was no niche within that market that I was trying to take advantage of and capitalize on. So what happened with Buckt was that we tried to do that. So what I would advise is spending as much time as you can to find that niche, be creative. And a good example that I just wanted to kind of finish on with this point is it is easier said than done. But what I would advise is to understand the problem that you're trying to solve and then don't do the obvious thing. So for us with Buckt, it isn't about people not having things to do. That is not the problem. It looks like it on the surface, but actually the problem is that there's too much for them to do. You go onto Groupon, you go onto TripAdvisor, there's loads. Just Googling what things to do in Birmingham, it's just ridiculous. So what we were looking at was actually that there's too much to do. So our solution was to reduce the options, take it down to just 5 options every month that we pick for them. So understand that problem, kind of flip it on its head and do something that people wouldn't expect. And finally, a really, really quick one, tip 4, don't waste time with a long-winded business plan. You don't need to do it. The business will change daily, and it did for us. All I would say is that at some point you may have to, at some point you may need to do it for a bank or whatever, but majority of people that are telling you to write a business plan when you start a business have never run a business. You could just make some slides, create a slideshow, just to get your thoughts down. You could just have a document. Another good tool is something called the Lean Business Plan template. And I've got an image of it on the next slide. This is a really simple way of getting your thoughts on the paper, and you can change it, and it can evolve, and it's not like a long-winded process. And what, from, like I said, speaking to a lot of young entrepreneurs, they feel like they have to write a business plan straight off the bat, and they waste hours and hours and hours doing it. And then literally the next week it's changed. So don't waste your time on a business plan. This is the tool that I was talking about. I'm guessing these slides will be made available so you can access it. But as you can see, it just breaks down to really easy stages. Cool. So this is what I didn't do. So I used those tools that I talked about before, and yeah, they're useful. I'd recommend them to others, but this is what I didn't do. Now, the first thing that I would advise, and it depends what stage you're on in your business, but if you kind of before you've got going, don't do it alone. Okay. I am a sole founder, so I'm the only founder of the business. And actually what I've found, no one told me this at the beginning, but actually what I've found is that investors prefer co-founders. Obviously, you can split the workload. You've got someone there for your support. And one of the things I've noted down here is actually being an entrepreneur is lonely. It's a lonely process. You've got your own thoughts in your head, and you've got no one to share them with. Similarly, being a manager is lonely. If you're you're at the top and you've got people that are working for you, there's this constant, did I make the right decision? Have I explained this clearly? Do they like me? These really simple things that actually having somebody there that was in the same boat would really, really mitigate. And that is one of my biggest regrets. And one of the things that I think has impeded our growth is not actually having somebody there alongside me. So I would wholeheartedly say, try and find someone. Another little tip there that I've put on it is, and something that somebody advised me, which I thought was really useful, don't split the business 50-50 straight off the bat. Work together for 6 months, then divide it based on how much time you have invested. So I know people that have split a business 50-50 and then got 6 months down the line, and the other person's got a job. So what do? Do you let them have 50%, or do you start again? Or, you get yourself into an awkward position. So work together, then divide the shares kind of 6 months down the line. The other thing that I wish I'd done, and another tip that I'd give to you, is take an informed risk sooner. I am very risk averse as an entrepreneur, which is quite weird for an entrepreneur. But unfortunately, within business, you're going to have to take risks. So I've tried to process what I've done to encourage me to take more risks. And I've kind of explained, it's quite wordy, but I've tried to explain it for you, and I'll just talk you through it quickly. So the first thing is know your product. I think the reason why people don't take risks is because they're fearful of making mistakes. They're fearful of the unknown. They don't, it's that kind of that gap in their understanding. So the first thing is know the product inside and out, get feedback, learn, how can you establish greater margins? What are your margins? Do people like this area of the product? Are there ways to improve it? Whatever it may be, but understand that product. The second thing is make sure you and your team can do it. So it might sound quite obvious, but what I've had to go through before committing, and that's been through loans or external finance, is actually work out where our kind of doubts were. So what I mean by that is, for me, it was a case of, how do I reliably sell this product? We did certain campaigns that worked really, really well, but how do we reliably sell this continually over the year? How can we be making money whilst we're asleep? This is the question. And that was a big process for us, actually doing testing and trialing to establish that. Another example I've got is, how to make a sufficient margin to make the business viable. So we spent a lot of time kind of understanding our margins, because our business model isn't, there's aspects to it that complicate it slightly. So we spent a lot of time understanding that. So if you literally write down, this is something we're unsure about, this is something we're unsure about, this is something we're unsure about, and then spend months, might be a few weeks, a few months, getting to the point where you're confident in those areas, that will give you the confidence to take that risk. The third thing is understanding the harsh reality of running that's meant to say a business properly, but someone can't write a business properly. And what I mean by that is there's always a big step from running a business as a side hustle to committing to it full time. The reality is there's long hours, little to no pay, anxiety, stress, constant feeling of have I made the right decision, moaning customers, invoices to be paid. There is a real reality to it. And I think actually understanding that before you take that risk it makes you understand that risk in greater detail. And then the final thing is deciding whether you believe in it. I didn't believe in the marketing company. I didn't believe, if I'm being honest, that Fourth Wall, which is a business that's still running today, was the thing that was going to allow me to reach my ambitions and allow me to kind of be the entrepreneur that I envisaged that I would be. And once you truly, hand on heart, wholeheartedly, deep down believe in the business, I say take a risk. Get a loan, make changes faster, bring in another member of staff, whatever that risk may be, make that risk sooner rather than later. And finally, the last thing I just wanted to say is evaluate regularly. And this might sound obvious, but for me, I had a fantastic member of my staff a couple of years back, and she was just fantastic. We got on so well, brilliant. She ended up leaving the business because her workload got too much for her, and she was just stressed and this, that, and the other. When she left, I had to evaluate her role, and I managed to reduce what she was doing significantly because it was only me at that point. So I had to reduce it. I couldn't do her role and my role. If I'd taken that step 2 months earlier, she may have been with the business and I may have been able to retain that talent. So what we do now is after every kind of big step up or big growth or something that changes, we sit down and we do a very intense evaluation, looking at what went right and what went wrong. And what I would say in the early days, having someone say this to me, say, you know what, you need to be evaluating your systems as regularly as possible. I think that would have really helped. So every month, sit down, what went right, what went wrong, what can we do better? And then that's your focus for the month moving forward. So they're my tips. Nothing to add on there. They're my tips. Thanks for listening, guys. Sorry, it might have run over a little bit longer. And if you've got any questions, feel free to ask.
Perfect. Thank you ever so much. I think, as a person who doesn't have that entrepreneurial spirit or creativity in me, they're really fantastic pointers to just share, and hopefully anybody on the call who is thinking about starting up a business or who is in that early stage will really, really benefit from that. So thank you ever so much. If anybody does have any questions, please obviously populate the chat now. We can get those over to Dan. I'll kick off, Dan. Buckt, obviously you didn't touch much on the actual product. I know the product because you've been with the campus for a few years now, but just a quick overview. What I know you said we can expect axe throwing, zorbing, all of these different things. What made you decide? How do you decide on those activities? And I know you're saying you're regularly checking those. Like, at what point do you think actually no, let's switch it up, let's bring in something new?
Yeah, it's a combination of a few different things. I think the practical side of it is understanding the cost and making sure we're pulling a box together that is financially viable. But then there's also an element of finding activities that complement each other. So our philosophy is that not one box is going to be too heavily focused on action, too heavily focused on creativity. There's kind of an even spread. So what we tend to find is that you maybe find one or two activities that are going to go in that box, and then you focus your search on other activities that complement it. So you might get a trampoline park. Well, maybe we need to complement that with a heritage site. Maybe we complement that with, I don't know, whatever it may be. And And yet it's just a lot of research, a lot of testing the product, testing the activities, speaking to our networks and seeing what they recommend. And I think for us as well, we always try and find those like hidden gems. So for example, Grange Live Gaming, who had Rage Room and they had quite a lot of things going on. We got introduced to them quite early on before a lot of people knew about them, and beneficial to both. We had a really cool activity that people hadn't heard of, and through us working with them, they got a lot of like PR out of it. They got connections, and it just kind of spiraled for them. So yeah, research, to be honest, is the best way to go. Yeah,
awesome. And obviously with lockdown and these activities not open, obviously you've pivoted and you've got the new offering with the crafts and stuff. How easy was that for you to decide, actually, we need to do something here?
Yeah, the way that I saw lockdown, and I think this will resonate with quite a few of the people listening, is that I think it was easy to take it as okay, I can't work now, I can't do anything. And I think some people did that, some entrepreneurs did that, whereas other entrepreneurs, saw it as an opportunity. And I think any change in the landscape is an opportunity. Any kind of business, unfortunately, any business kind of dying is an opportunity for something else to come into its place. And what we saw that there was an opportunity there. It wasn't necessarily like out of necessity, in all fairness. It wasn't like, we need to start making some money. It was just a case of we saw how businesses had adapted to the new environment, and we saw that there were ways that we could work with them and use our model to then distribute them to our members. The thing that I find amusing about Buckt Go and Buckt Home is they are literally like the opposite end, like the opposite sides of a coin. Because for Buckt Go, it's very digital in terms of tickets, which are online. There is a physical box, and that is going to be changing. But apart from the physical box, there was no we didn't have to store anything. We didn't have to pack anything really. Whereas Buckt Home is the opposite. That's very intensive on manpower, packing, storing things, that kind of stuff. Like similarly, with Buckt Home, we can go national, but then on the opposite end of the spectrum, Buckt Go is regionalized. So it's quite funny that they are the weaknesses of one are the strengths of the other, and the strengths of vice versa. It's frustrating, to be honest, because really you want one that's bang in the middle that ticks both those boxes, but we're working on that. So like I said, not a necessity, but
difference in customers for the two offerings.
Yeah, Buckt Go, we understand the customer a lot better. We've spent a lot of time learning about the customer and understanding that there's a right and wrong customer as well. Like for example, people coming in at a discount and then leaving the first month, like they're not the right customer for us. You need customers that sign up, and if they don't do an activity, it's not the end of the world. Whereas with Buckt Home, I came into it with an idea as to the customer. We have done our testing and that customer has changed, but even still, like over Christmas, we've learned a lot about that customer. I mean, over Christmas, we grew by 1,032% since November for Buckt Home. And with all that data, you start gathering better understanding. This type of customer stays, this type of customer goes, this type of customer's good, this type of customer's bad. So yeah, to be specific, Buckt Go is 25 to 40, young professionals, dual income, no kids. We describe them as adventurers, but life has got in the way. They want to do stuff, but maybe don't have the time to sift through. They want just a convenient thing. Whereas Buckt Home is becoming very very playful couples, as in they'll do crafting, they'll do that kind of stuff, but then it's also been focused on quite an older demographic. But like I said, that's part of the journey really. We haven't been going long with that, and that's just something that we're learning really.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and something that you probably never thought you'd be in the position to have to think about. So
yeah,
hats off to you guys. We've got a question come in from Hader. It says, have you got any tips for acquiring customer one for a B2B business model in a regulated industry?
So our business is B2C. We do have some corporate clients. So and B2C and B2B are very different. I think the one thing from doing the marketing, and that was all B2B, is this doggedness or like persistency. You have to have, with some people, you have to have multiple touch points with them. You have to kind of chase them. I'm having to go through that process with investors now. You kind of, you make contact and you think they'll get back to you straight away, but it doesn't happen like that. So I would just say, be persistent. Don't be afraid to chase people. Don't be afraid to become a bit of a nuisance with them. And then also think about it as a numbers game. So, I mean, let's say you get 100 people, you make 100 calls and you can get 1%. That's one customer. I mean, you might want to make it even 0.1. It's only 1,000 calls over the space of a week and you get one customer. So yes, that's what I'd kind of advise.
Cool. Super. All right then. Well, we've not had anything else come in the chat, but obviously if anybody does have any more questions, feel free to pop it in and then we'll re-ask Dan again at the end. But I'll thank you very much for your presentation. Obviously encourage everybody to check out Buckt and their offering, and thank you for this evening.
No, brilliant. Thanks for having me.
No worries. So I'll swiftly pass over to Paul so we can keep on schedule. So Paul, if you'd like to share your screen and talk to us all about open source satellite.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? Brilliant. Excellent. Okay, well, I'm very excited to be here to talk to you guys about the open source satellite program. It's one of the most exciting things I've ever been involved with. Just to introduce myself a little bit, I am an embedded software engineer. I've been working as a software engineer for about 21 years. And in that time, I've been working on mission critical and safety critical systems onboard spacecraft and onboard aircraft. Right now I work for these guys, KISS Space Systems Limited, and we're a space consultancy business. We offer consultancy services to all kinds of people, everything from a blue chip company right the way down to a startup company or an SME, about anything to do with the space industry, everything from bid writing all the way to operating satellites and spacecraft in orbit. So so what is, but the main thrust of the company, the thing that gets us excited, is the idea of kind of making a change to the space industry, that changes it not just from, not just locally, not just for us, but for others as well. So we in the UK, we have actually had some history in doing that exact thing, because if I give you a little history lesson for a minute or two, ever since kind of we started going into space with Sputnik a long time ago, and for the 40 years that kind of followed that, space technology was kind of, it used a lot of tried and tested technologies that were kind of had been used before, and that made a lot of sense because, as you can imagine, launching something into space is pretty expensive. So we wanted to know that it would work when it got up there. But there were some people, particularly from the University of Surrey in Guildford, who were very kind of formative in kind of bringing about a bit of a transformation. So they decided, why not make satellites smaller? And they were kind of a bit of a joke when they decided to do that. But there were a lot of advantages in doing so, because if you make the satellites smaller, then you can launch more of them on one rocket, which reduces the cost. And in doing that, they also decided that they weren't going to use the sort of normal technology that the space industry normally uses. They decided they were going to go after the use of kind of commercial technology, the kind of technology that you'd find in your fridge or your washing machine or your car or your laptop computer, and more latterly with your mobile phone. These are kind of technologies that they were using, and they were really successful at using those technologies in orbit. And people thought, nah, there's no way this stuff is going to survive the space environment, which is pretty nasty. But the truth was that actually these technologies did work quite well in space. And then more latterly, in the last sort of 15 years, there's been another evolution in the space industry where there's these new satellites that are kind of 10 centimeter by 10 centimeter by 10 centimeter cubes called CubeSats. and they're quite limited in what they can do because they're quite small, and there's limits. You can't break the laws of physics. There's limits to what you can make them do, but nonetheless, they've been really transformative because they're so small. You can even launch them. Some have been launched for free. They just kind of piggyback on, in the rocket and get deployed, alongside a bigger satellite. So we kind of looked at it and we thought, we're a group of space professionals. We want to make a bit of a change here. We recognized there was a kind of gap in the middle. And so we thought, how do we fill this market need for something that's then perhaps a little bit smaller than some of these small satellites, which are kind of the size of your dishwasher, but has all those sort of advantages of the price point that a CubeSat can bring. So we thought, right, let's design the next generation microsatellite. And when we were thinking about that, the software industry has been leading the way when it comes to open source. So open source technologies are used all over in lots of products now. If you're into sort of software at all, you know about Linux, which is an open source alternative to Windows and Mac OS and that sort of thing. GNU are an organization that are really prominent in the embedded software field, and also, in the real-time sort of embedded software field, there is an open source operating system called FreeRTOS, which is now one of the most popular operating systems in the world for embedded platforms. So we kind of thought, right, let's leverage some of this technology because it's freely available. That will reduce our cost. But also we want to give back to that community as well. So what we're trying to do as quite a unique venture is we're pledging to make all of the open source satellite platform design openly and freely available 1 year after the launch of the first satellite. So by all of it, what I mean is every single design artifact. So that would be the software, the mechanical design, the electronics, the electronics design, the computer-aided design models, the system requirements, the system models, everything basically that you might be required to build a satellite. And through that venture, we'll also be releasing this information prior to that point of 1 year after the launch to supporters and sponsors. So where are we with this venture? How far have we got? Well, we're building a community of developers right across the world. These are enthusiastic individuals like myself who really got a real passion for space stuff and they want to get into it. They might be already in the space industry. They might be outside of it, but can bring kind of knowledge from other sort of industries. So we're building that community. Currently, we've got around 25 collaborators worldwide, but it's growing quite rapidly. We're also developing our concept of operations about what this thing's going to do. And the idea is that we'll build a satellite platform that could service a few different things, not just one thing. So that might include the Internet of Things. So that's where you might have a remote sensor, maybe monitoring temperature in the middle of the Sahara Desert. It can't get on a 4G network because there is no 4G. So it beams information up to the satellite redistributes it down to the ground, and that gets distributed around the globe in the cloud. And then you can see what the temperature is in the Sahara Desert if you so wish. So that's one application. We're also handling Earth observation. So that's, taking pictures and videos of the Earth from space, and synthetic aperture radar, which is very high resolution images of the Earth using radar technology. So those are the kind of things we're hoping that this thing could do. As well as that, we know that we need to be able to use some core technology inside this spacecraft. So we're kind of evaluating various new technologies that are used commercially and trying to figure out, will they survive the space environment? And we're kind of we're doing that with the University of Surrey. We've got a study going on, and you can see here a processor. This is a microprocessor that you might find in your car, in your engine management unit of your car. And we're trying to repurpose that as the core processor for our spacecraft. So we put it into a radiation chamber in Surrey University, and I was at this chamber yesterday, closing the door and switching on the radiation just to see how well this bit of circuitry would cope with the radiation environment of space. Not only that, we're also developing sort of demonstration code that will help us demonstrate the capability of the spacecraft. We're developing communication software that allows it to communicate with the ground, developing lab infrastructure to allow us to continuously test this thing as it gets developed so that we get early indication of when there are problems. And then we're developing extensions of FreeRTOS, which is a free real-time operating system, open source, that will suit our open source satellites requirements. So as well as that, we're also, as I said, building a group of developers across the world to collaborate, mostly voluntarily. These are in the UK, Greece, Norway, Portugal, Spain, Australia, and New Zealand. And so we're kind of, sort of having calls at funny times of the day because of the different time zones, but it's a lot of fun to be working with such a diverse group of people on this common goal of developing a spacecraft. It's a lot of fun. So what challenges do we have? Well, funding, obviously, is going to be a big one because, launching a satellite into space is an expensive business. But we have some good links. We secured some private investment. We're going after various bits of grant funding, and any help you guys have about sources of funding would be much appreciated for any such venture. And we're also, the challenge of growing an open source community. So we're kind of, trying to get on social media, employing the right people to sort of put the message out there, doing things like this to talk to you guys about these crazy ideas of putting things in space. And also, the challenge really for me as an engineer, the joy of it is that I've got a blank sheet of paper and someone telling me to design a satellite, which, you don't often get because usually you've got a customer telling you what you want. But in this case, we've got, there is no customer at the moment. So that's great. So I can design what I think is cool. But it is also quite a daunting prospect because where do you even start, So thank you very much for listening to me witter on about the open source satellite project. I hope it's been interesting, informative, fun. If you want to get involved in any kind of way, you can register interest on our website. We've got a LinkedIn page, Twitter, and all the usual things. So any questions you have, I welcome.
Amazing. Thank you ever so much. And, as we spoke before, I was kind of sat here completely just not having a clue at all what you were going to say, whether I'd understand any of it. But yeah, thank you ever so much. It was really fascinating. So yes, please do ask any questions you have. Populate that chat now for Paul. And yeah, I think, Paul, what kind of time frame are you looking at? When are you looking to launch?
Yeah, so we're trying to secure launch possibilities. We've got quite a lot of links with different organizations across the world, and one that was in the news just recently was Virgin Orbit, who are launching a rocket off the bottom of a Boeing 747, and they've just had a successful launch of that on Sunday. Was their first successful launch and deployment of satellites into orbit, and they did that from America. But the technology that Boeing 747 is hopefully going to be brought to the UK, and KISS Space Systems are involved with that. And actually, the hope is to sort of develop a facility in Cornwall at Newquay Airport to launch the plane and then deploy the rocket, and off it goes into space. So, we've got links with these people. We're always on the lookout for launch opportunities. And at the moment, we're targeting the end of 2022.
Okay, so not too far ahead then, really.
No.
So Hayden's asked, does Elon, or I'm going to pronounce this, is it Bezos, know about this? Maybe through our links, I think possibly they do know about this. Yeah, I mean, those guys, it's an interesting thing because one of the interesting things about space, Starlink and the SpaceX sort of spacecraft networks, Elon Musk is actually launching more objects into space
than are currently up there in one constellation with Starlink. So that's, if you don't know, that's a space network that is going to provide internet services to the ground. So, you know, instead of having an ISP of Virgin or, you know, BT or whatever, you'll be getting your internet from spacecraft. That's the idea. But there's some issues with that as well, because there's a lot of junk up there. So there's a lot of things to remove out of orbit, because, well, if you know much about space, the International Space Station actually has to move every 3 months to avoid getting hit by something, because there's so much stuff up there. So Elon is actually just kind of adding to that with a whole lot more load of stuff. So it's an interesting thing. So yeah, I don't know, but I thought, you know, you might be interested in some of that.
Yeah, and I think if we all take that piece of homework away to this evening, tweet either of those people just to make sure that, you know, we get to them, then that would be helpful. But okay, if there's any more questions, please do populate the chat now. I know obviously we're okay for time now, so please do, you know, continue to pop anything in there. I'll thank you for the moment, Paul, and then if we get anything, we'll come back, just so I can let everybody know about the opportunities we've got coming up. So thank you ever so much for your time. Really fantastic. Everybody check them out, and everybody tweet Elon and the International Space Station. Make sure we get Open Source Satellite on the map. Cool. Okay, right, what I'm going to do then is I'm just going to re-share my screen. Hopefully, there we go. Yeah, so 3 things I just wanted to put on people's radars. So next Thursday, so Thursday the 28th, we are holding VentureFest West Midlands. If you've not heard of VentureFest before, where have you been? VentureFest happens every single year. It's all over the country. Obviously West Midlands we host here, and it's usually at the NEC each year, but obviously we're going virtual for the first time. So really excited about that. So the morning session kicks off at 8:45 with our MD, David Hardman. He's the VentureFest chair, so he'll be opening the day. And then we'll pass over to the first keynote talk of the day, which is from Ben Francis, the CEO of Gymshark. So, you know, a great entrepreneurial story of a local lad from Bromsgrove, started this business at 19, and is now running a £1 billion company. So really, really interesting to hear from him. The day is from 8:45 to 1:15, so you can dip in and out of the sessions. Alongside VentureFest, we have Pitchfest, which is a group of local entrepreneurs, each pitching against each other to be crowned the Pitchfest 2021 winner. So really great way to hear about what's going on in the region. You know, fantastic that Ben is giving us his time. I'm sure he's a very, very busy person, but yeah, definitely one to put into your diary for next week. The second thing I just wanted to bring to your attention was our Geovation are our partner hub. Many of you will be familiar with them. They've done a couple of Tech Wednesday takeovers for us, which is, you know, we always welcome them. Applications for their new accelerator are open, and they close on the 22nd of February. So you've got around 4 weeks to apply for that if you are looking to do so. They're on the lookout for any companies that use location or property data, and the program lasts for 12 months. Some really great companies have come through their program. You know, lots of exciting, innovative ideas. If you're not sure whether you fit the bill, they are running a half-an-hour session tomorrow morning. Just search on Eventbrite for Geovation Accelerator Application Q&A, and you can, you know, listen to what they've got to say, ask any questions, see if you would benefit from that. It's completely free, and a really great opportunity if you're in that area. And then the last thing I just wanted to make people aware of, or to remind them, is that my colleague Sylvia hosts a one-to-one business support session every Wednesday and Thursday for any businesses and entrepreneurs across the Greater Birmingham and Solihull area. Again, something completely free, definitely worth having a conversation with Sylvia. She can help you with financial planning, fundraising, market strategies, many, many more. And as I say, completely free to access. So a really great opportunity to just have that conversation, really. So yeah, sped through them. If there's no more questions, I'll just double check the chat. If there is no more questions, then I think we've come to the end of the session. Thank you ever so much, as I say at the beginning, for joining us. A happy new year to everybody, and hopefully it's full of success for you all. If you are interested in speaking at any of our Tech Wednesday sessions, or if you would like to do a visiting expert session, if you think that you would benefit more so from that, please do drop me an email. It's stephanie.einan@bruntwood.co.uk. I'd love to hear from you. And that brings us to a close. Thank you ever so much again, Dan and Paul, for sharing your expertise and knowledge with us. Hopefully everybody on the call has benefited in some way or other, and we'll hopefully see you all again next month. Enjoy your evenings, and we'll see you then.